Number 1. Wearing a bikini in public. The bikini as we know it was introduced in 1946, right after World War II, by French designer Louis Vuitton. It was shockingly small for its time, revealing the navel and much of the body, which violated the modesty standards of the era. So much so that female models of the time refused to present this new piece of clothing. The first woman to showcase the bikini was Micheline Bernardini, a nude dancer from the Casino de Paris. Countries across Europe and North America moved to ban the bikini from public beaches. In Italy, women could be fined or arrested for wearing bikinis. Spain, under Franco's dictatorship, strictly enforced public decency laws, and bikinis were outright prohibited until the 1960s. The US, in particular, had a complex relationship with swimwear. In the 1950s, public pools and beaches often had decency patrols, measuring swimsuit lengths to ensure that they covered the proper amount of skin. And in Atlantic City, ordinances even required women to wear skirts over their swimsuits. Cultural attitudes began shifting in the 1960s and 1970s as the sexual revolution, feminist movements, and changing fashion norms pushed back against restrictive laws. Number 2. Drinking alcohol. From 1920 to 1933, the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcohol was illegal across the United States. Religious and women's groups argued that alcohol was responsible for crime, domestic abuse, poverty, and moral decline. The idea was that banning alcohol would uplift society, eliminate vice, and strengthen the family structure. However, the reality was far more chaotic than reformers had anticipated. Rather than eliminating alcohol, prohibition led to the rise of bootlegging, speakeasies, and organized crime. Criminal empires like that of Al Capone flourished, trafficking alcohol across cities and states. Law enforcement struggled to contain the black market, and corruption within police departments and local governments became rampant. Ironically, drinking never stopped. It just went underground. Secret bars hidden beneath the cities, so-called speakeasies, popped up everywhere. People brewed moonshine in bathtubs and used medicinal loopholes to obtain whiskey. By the late 1920s, public opinion had begun to turn. The supposed benefits of prohibition were not materializing, and crime rates had skyrocketed. The federal government was losing tax revenue, especially during the onset of the Great Depression. In 1933, the 21st Amendment was passed, repealing the 18th Amendment and officially ending prohibition. And today, drinking alcohol is once again a norm in our society. Number 3. Teaching evolution in schools. The conflict began with Charles Darwin's journey across the world, which led to him forming the theory of natural selection. While the scientific community increasingly accepted evolution as a valid explanation for biological development, religious opposition was fierce. Many Christian groups viewed it as an attack on the biblical account of creation. This tension boiled over in Tennessee, where the Butler Act was passed in 1925. This law banned public school teachers from presenting human evolution because they supposedly attacked God. It wasn't until the 1960s that the legal tide began to shift. In 1968, the Supreme Court ruled that bans on teaching evolution violated the First Amendment, which prohibits the government from enforcing religion. Still, the controversy persisted. In later years, some states attempted to push creation science or intelligent design as alternatives to evolution. These efforts, however, were consistently struck down in court. Number 4. Working on Sundays. These laws were commonly known as blue laws, and they aimed to enforce religious standards. The concept dates back to a Roman edict laying the groundwork for laws that would persist long after the fall of the empire. By the 17th and 18th centuries, blue laws had taken hold in places like Puritan New England, where any kind of labor, plowing fields, selling goods, opening shops, was banned on Sundays. Violating these laws could result in public shaming, fines, or even jail time. In colonial America, enforcement was serious. Punishments escalated quickly. First offense, loss of allowance. Second offense, whipping in the streets. Third offense, public execution. The justification? Sabbath breaking was acquainted with rebellion against God. Even as late as the 20th century, blue laws continued to affect daily life. In Canada, the Lord's Day Act even made it illegal to go to a movie on Sundays. However, blue laws gradually faded due to economic pressure and cultural shifts. Working on a Sunday might now seem like a normal, if unfortunate, part of adult life. Number 5. Private ownership of gold. Today, buying and storing gold is a relatively normal and personal investment choice. But in the United States, there was a time when simply possessing too much gold made you a criminal. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, which prohibited the hoarding and ownership of gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates. The law required all U.S. citizens to turn in their gold to the Federal Reserve at a fixed rate of $20.67 per ounce. Non-compliance could result in a fine of up to $10,000, equivalent to over $200,000 today, or up to 10 years in prison. The government wanted more control over the money supply, and the gold standard limited its options. And their easiest solution was to criminalize private gold ownership. Once the gold was collected, the government just raised the price for gold to $35 per ounce, effectively printing money and giving the Treasury more financial leverage. If you'd held onto your gold illegally, it was now worth 70% more, but doing so was a federal crime. There were some exceptions, though. You could still own gold used in industry, art, or collectibles. It wasn't until 1974 that President Gerald Ford signed legislation making it legal again for U.S. citizens to own gold bullion. Number 6. Rock and roll music. When rock and roll exploded in the 1950s, it was associated with youth rebellion, racial integration, and sexual freedom. Artists like Elvis Presley brought a raw energy that clashed hard with the conservative norms of the time. Authorities across the U.S. and parts of Europe reacted swiftly. In many cities, rock concerts were outright banned or shut down mid-performance. Schools and churches labeled the music devilish, insinuating that rock stars were literally trying to summon demons to our world. Meanwhile, parents and clergy called for boycotts, record burnings, and government intervention. But the fear was about more than musical. It was cultural. Rock and roll blurred the racial lines between white and black music. Segregated America just wasn't ready for that yet. On top of that, the raw physicality of the genre, especially with artists like Elvis, was seen as dangerous. His appearance on TV shows was famously censored, filmed only from the waist up to avoid showing his dance moves. Outside the United States, Soviet authorities banned rock music entirely, labeling it a symptom of capitalist decay. And in Iran, rock was illegal under the Islamic Republic. It wasn't until the 1960s and 70s that rock music broke into full mainstream acceptance. Thanks for watching. See the video on your screen? Well, YouTube thinks this one might interest you as well, so go ahead and check it out if you like.